So thank you for the opportunity to present, Mr. Chairman and co-chairman. My learning objectives for this will be to discuss the elements of an effective surgical program, education program, and identify the available tools. I think you saw a lot of those in the previous presentations. My presentation will be brief, realizing it's the last presentation of the meeting. So if you think about what really makes good surgical education programs, there's a number of components, right? I would start that you have to have a supportive chair and a conducive environment to education, and those are related. You have to have motivated faculty that love to teach, ideally. You have to have motivated learners who love to learn and teach, because you also have other learners, like medical students. You have to have an effective curriculum. I would argue you also need evidence-based teaching and feedback methods to make sure you provide the best possible opportunities for learning. You need to have assessments. Korndorfer is gone, so I can call them validated. But it's important to mention multimodal, right? So it's not just one. You have to take to have a good picture of the learner. And I will also argue that you also need educational research. All right, so this is it. I'm done. Okay. So you do have some tools available to you to meet those objectives, right? And you heard all of those tools mentioned in the previous presentation, right? You have Professorbased training you can make use of, scenario-based training, you have off-the-shelf curricula that are listed here, and you heard about. You have robust assessment tools that already exist. You have simulators and other instructional technologies. You saw several of them mentioned. And you also have effective introverted teaching methods. So I will go through some of the elements I mentioned a little more in detail. So I would argue that it all starts from the top, right? So if the chair of the department is very supportive, you will have a more conducive environment to learning. Everybody's going to be more attuned to that. The reality is you, depending on where you are in the hierarchy, you may have little control over this. However, you can choose wisely during the hiring process, because you should be able to assess whether the environment you're trying to get to is really conducive to learning and what value it puts on education or not. Or you have an alternative. You can be the agent of change, right? So you can work, and if you put enough effort, you can always affect change. You just need to be methodical and really passionate about it. In regards to motivated faculty that love to teach, I think one way to motivate faculty is obviously putting weight and rewarding teaching accomplishments. Also, look at their teaching accomplishments before you hire them into your department. Reward the motivated faculty for their passion for teaching. And that reward can be in an award fashion. It can be even financial, depending on where you are and what resources you have. Create incentives that promote good teaching, and distribute teaching responsibilities evenly as much as possible, because what often happens in training programs, there's a percentage of faculty who are very engaged and love teaching, and everything falls on them, and that will burn them out eventually, and you lose your good teachers. So you need to try to distribute that across the department. It goes without saying that besides faculty, the administrative support, the coordinators, or I guess we now have a new name for them, administrators, or whatever we're calling them, is important. They're the heart of training programs, both for residents and students. And if they're not motivated or passionate, you will never achieve a level of excellence. But we cannot forget the role of the learner, right? So you need trainees who love to learn and also teach. And many of us are involved in the selection process, so our role is to choose them wisely. You can oftentimes tell who's more interested in teaching and who's not. You may want, once you have them in your program, award, similarly to what you do for your faculty, award those who demonstrate passion for learning and teaching, but also provide them a framework that they can become better teachers and learners. Give them opportunities, train the trainers, give them opportunities to teach the students, teach in the skills lab. All these things will increase the motivation and participation. Feed the curiosity. In regards to effective curriculum, we have plenty at our disposal at the present time. We have a number of curriculum off the shelf, as I mentioned, for basic skills training. We also have for procedural skills, whether those are virtual reality, animal cadaveric models. We have a number of options for cognitive skills, right? Preparation courses for the upside, the score, curriculum, textbooks, mock orals, and the list goes on and on. We also have a number of options for non-technical skills, narrow-based training, team training. But I would also argue that a little bit forgotten area, which is receiving a lot more attention recently, is affective skills, right? So wellness, mental skills, how to optimize your performance, an area that I have a lot of interest in. So all these things exist, and there's more and more coming out. You don't necessarily have to invent everything. There's a lot of that available that you can learn from and implement and adapt. So when you look at Professorbased training, and I know that Kent went through some of this, the way I look at this, and this published a few years ago, and it's mainly related to simulation training, but it kind of embeds evidence-based teaching methods and how you can maximize performance. And I would argue the same applies also to a training program, because all the concepts are the same, right? So you need to give, you need to do a baseline assessment to know where your learners are, whatever skill or you're trying to teach or train in, whether that's knowledge, whether that is manual skill, procedure. And then you need to provide them with some training goals that goes along the lines of proficiency-based training, and give them the opportunity to practice and train in a distributed fashion. You need to provide appropriate feedback and coach them through this process. Some opportunities to overlearn. The concept is the more you train them, the more they will remember, and also to provide them with elements of maintenance of that, of the skills and knowledge they acquire, because we all forget. And if you don't do this, a lot of the initial training goes to waste, right? So you need to structure some of this in a way that you'll get the most return on your investment, of your teaching investment, if you like. And you have to adjust, obviously, all this to the individual learner and to their level. You cannot start with the most complex skill with an intern. You need to start with simple and then gradually progress to the more complex things. Interpretive teaching, extremely important. You just heard a whole presentation on this, but this is essentially the 6 steps that the LabCo program uses to improve our teaching methods in the open room and really allow our learners to get the most out of that experience. And the hallmark here, what this is all based on, is the concept of cognitive overload and divided attention. And if they're practicing something, they're trying to do something, they cannot really listen to you to absorb the teaching elements, so you need to stop them so you have the full attention, and then you can teach them and then go back to practicing again. Coaching is clearly another very popular method that is gaining a lot of acceptance, and it also follows specific elements like having goals, setting goals, assessing the reality of where someone is in regards to his skill or what the gaps are, figure out what is the best option to address those gaps, and figuring out the next steps forward to achieve your goals, and it's a constant cycle that you keep evaluating your goals and modifying them, trying to achieve new goals. We talked about multimodal assessments. Alan presented a number of things. Simple is something we use at our institution. It's an easy way to get assessments. It takes a few seconds to complete an evaluation, but we also have a number of really robust tools like John presented to you for teamwork assessment and non-technical skills. But the whole concept is that you need to have several assessments per individual to be able to get a really full picture of their abilities. Don't just rely on one, because each assessment reflects a different skill typically, right? So it's different for technical skills, different for non-technical skills, different for all the SEGME competencies, relationships, etc., etc. And I'll finish by saying how important I think it is to also have an element of education research, because it does promote continuous improvement in your education methods. This is essentially the same like we talk about quality improvement. Well, what is quality improvement in education? Education research, right? So this is something you need to have, because that's the way you can constantly improve what you're doing. There's so many things we still need to fix and improve. If you don't engage in structured research, you won't be able to achieve it as much. So you need to, it will allow you to use evidence-based approaches. When you have a question, study it and choose the best approach. It defines new, better methods, and this is how we got to where we got today, because education research has taken really, is on fire. And it opens your mind, right? It allows you to move ideas from one to the other, and that's how we make progress. All right, that's all I had for you. Thank you for sticking with it.